Alright guys, so now that we have our basic cart set up, I want to move on because to be able to check out you need to be logged in, and we haven't created the user controller yet or any user functions so that we can actually check out. So we're going to do that now. And the first method that I want to work on is the register method in the user controller. Alright, so let's go ahead and open up your text editor, and inside of controllers we're going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it users.php. Alright, and we're just going to set up a class. We need our PHP tags. So class users extends CI underscore controller. Alright, so the users controller isn't going to have an index method. We're not going to go to the gaming place / user. Alright, so that's not going to do anything, but we do want a register function, so it should go to user / register. Alright, so let's go ahead and create a view. So if we go back into the views folder and create a new file and call this register.php, and we'll just say this is register. Alright, now back in the users controller, let's say public function register. Alright, and I'm just going to paste in a view or load a view. Alright, so this is going to load the register view, but if we save it and reload, it's not coming up, and one of the reasons is we have to load the user's controller or user's library. Alright, so let's do that in the autoload file, which is in the config folder. Down here, actually, you know what? We don't have to load it. I don't believe. No, we don't. And the reason this isn't working is because this should be users plural. Alright, so now we can see that this is the register view. Alright, so now let's go ahead and input the HTML into the register view. So if we go to our HTML template that we created and open up register HTML, and we just want to grab the form. So from here down to the closing form tag, copy that and paste that right in the view. Alright, and there's some things we want to change here. Of course, we need to add an action to the form. So we'll say method is going to be post, and action, we're going to echo out the base URL first of all, and then it's going to go to, where is it going to go? Users / register. Okay, so we can save that, and let's make sure that shows up, which it does. Now this is where I'm going to introduce you to the form validation library. Alright, so that's what we can use to do virtually any kind of form validation. We can check required fields, we can check for valid email addresses, we can make sure that the passwords match, we can make sure, say, username is 8 or more characters, pretty much anything. And if you want to read more about the class, there's some really good documentation on it. Alright, so it gives you the syntax. And in your view, obviously you want to display the errors. So if someone leaves out a required field, you want it to say, well, this field's required. And it's very easy to add that functionality. All you need to do is add this line to your template or to your view. So let's do that now. I'm just going to copy that and then go to register, my register view, and right above form, I'm just going to paste that. Now, one cool thing about this is if you don't want to just have just the text there, you can actually wrap every error inside of a div or whatever element you'd like. So you can just pass that in here. All right, so I'm passing this in, and what it's going to do is wrap all of the errors with the div and then alert and alert danger, which if you're familiar with Bootstrap, you know what that is. It's just going to make it red, pretty much, give it a red background. All right, so that's all we need to do for our errors to be able to display to the user. Okay, so let's save that. And I just want to make sure everything else is all set here. Make sure you have all your names. Even the button should have a name. Okay, we'll call that submit. Alright, so I'm going to save that because I don't believe we need this file again. So I'll close that out. Alright, so if we go back to our CodeIgniter documentation, let's see. You need to load two things. You need to load the URL helper and load the form validation library. And I'm not a fan of loading it like this. I like to use the auto loader. So let's go to our config folder and then the auto load. And down in libraries, we just want to add form validation. And then we can use it. And the helper, looks like we already have the URL helper, so that's fine. So let's save that. Alright, so now we don't need to include these. Alright, so what we want to do is when we go to the register page, we want to make sure, well, we want to see if the form has been submitted or not, because obviously we don't want to validate if nobody's submitted the form. And you can do that with this if statement right here. So basically, if the form validation, if it's false, if it hasn't ran, then you're just going to load the view. If it has ran, then you can do all your whatever, database insertions, whatever. So I'm going to copy that. Get rid of that. And you want to go to the register function, and I'm just going to paste this in. Alright, so the view that we have here, let's just cut that. I'm going to cut it and then paste it right in here and overwrite this load view. Alright, so if the validation and the form haven't been submitted, okay, it's just going to give us a view. So let's make sure that works. Alright, good. So let's go back. So now what we need to do is set our rules, our validation rules. Alright, so we're going to do this above this if statement. Whoops. Okay, so how we do this is we're going to say this form validation set underscore rules. Alright, and then we have a few parameters here. The first one is going to be the field name, so let's do the first name field. The second is going to be a readable name, so first name. And this is what's used in the message, so make sure that it's human readable. And then the last one is going to be a set of options, which are going to be the rules. Alright, and if we go back to that CodeIgniter page, scroll down all the way to the bottom, you can see all the rules that are available. So we have required, okay, so it's going to make sure that something's entered there. Matches, is unique. You can do minimum and maximum length, numeric, alpha, greater than, less than, all kinds of things, valid email. So you can basically validate anything. All right. So this is what goes in that options area. And there's also one that I like to use called trim, which will take off any excess white space. All right, so let's do that. Let's add in the options that we want to use here. So I'm going to do trim, and then to separate these, you want to use a pipe. Okay, so trim, this is required, another pipe, and let's give this a max length. We'll do a max length of 20. All right, and actually we can do a minimum length as well. Let's do that too. So min length, and let's say 5. Actually, it's a name. We'll say 2, because some people might have a really short name. All right, and make sure they're separated by pipes. So let's just go ahead and test this one rule. All right, so if we reload and I try to submit, you can see the first name field is required. Now this whole thing shouldn't turn red, so we must have some kind of conflict with our divs. Let me see. Let's go back to views, register, div class alert. Okay, I think we need to add in the closing div as well here. Save that, and let's go ahead and try this again. Hold on, let me reload. Huh. It's working here, it's just that the div is above it. Actually, you know what? The first div should be its own parameter, and then comma, and then the second div. So that should work, hopefully. Okay, so create an account. The link for create an account is wrong, so we'll change that in a little bit. It goes to user, it should be users. All right, so let's submit, and there we go. The first name field is required. So let's go ahead and add the rest of our rules. All right, so I'm going to paste these in. All right, so let's go through each of these. We have the last name field, which is, we're doing the same thing. Trim required. You know what, I'm going to leave the min and max length off of both first name and last name. I just wanted to show you how we could do that. Okay, so email, we're doing trim required, and also valid email, which will make sure that it's a formatted email address. Next we have the username. All right, so trim required, and also a minimum length of 4. Let's see, username, looks like we have that twice. Yeah, let's get rid of this first one. Alright, so next we have the password, and this is where we can use the matches. Alright, so password, whatever, min length, max length, and then password 2 is going to have this matches password, and that's just going to validate that password 2 is equal to password 1. Okay, and then if it passes, then whatever we put down here will happen. All right, and let's just test it out. We'll say echo, it's all good. All right, so let's go ahead and reload this. If we try to submit, you see we have a whole bunch of errors. Okay, so let's try to pass all the validations. Register, and you can see that we've passed. All right, so that's how form validation works. I really like how they do this. I think it's super easy, and makes your forms and overall website more secure. Alright, so now since we passed validation, what we want to do is go through the user model and register the user. Okay, so I'm going to paste this in, and we're just saying if user model register. Okay, so this is a function we'll create inside of the user model. If it's true, then what we're going to do here is say this session get flash data. Now flash data is what CodeIgniter uses so that you can actually set a message and redirect to a new page and then still have that message to echo out onto the page. Okay, so it uses sessions to do that. So the flash data parameters, it takes two parameters. One is just the name of the flash data, so you can grab onto this inside products where we're going to be redirecting to, and you can actually echo out this message. Okay, so the name and then the message. So we're just going to call it registered, and it's just going to say you are now registered and can log in. Alright, so all we need to do now is create this register function inside of the user model. So let's go do that. If we go to models, we need to create a new file, and we're going to call it user model.php. And remember, we have to load models, so I'm going to go to my config auto load file and go down to models. Okay, we have our product model there. Now we just want to add user model. Save that. Alright, now in here we're going to say class. I don't know why it keeps adding that function. Okay, so PHP class equals, not equals, class user model extends CI underscore model. Alright. And let's see, we want a register function. So public function register. No parameters. And now we're just going to create a data array equal to all the post fields from the form that we submitted. Alright, so data array first name is going to equal whatever we type in first name, last name, email, username, password. Now this password I'm actually going to wrap in MD5. I'm pretty sure that CodeIgniter has ways to encrypt passwords, but I'm just going to do this just for simplicity. Alright, so we have the data with all the information we want to insert. So now what I'm going to do is create an insert variable and equal it to this db insert. Okay, so we're using active record, and then we want to insert this into the users table. Alright, and then the next parameter is going to be our data array. And then we're simply going to return insert. Okay, and if it goes through, this function will return true. Well, actually, it will return true. If not, it will return false. And that's why we're testing it right here. Alright, so make sure everything's saved. And let's go ahead and try this. I already have my info there. Okay. Oh, one more thing. We're setting this flash data, but we also need to put it in the template or in the view where we want it to spit out. So that is products. So we want to go to views, products, and I'm going to paste this in. Alright, so to echo the flash data, we need to just say echo this session flash data and then the name. Alright, but I want to add an alert around it. I want to add a div tag around it, so I'm using the if statement, which is saying if this flash data is set, then spit out the divs and the actual message. Okay, so let's save that and try to register. Class user model not found. Okay, class user model extends CI model. I'm not sure what happened there. Make sure everything is saved, and then we'll try again. Let's go back. All right, do test. All right, so you are now registered and can log in. So if we go to our database, and let's see, click on users, you can now see we have our test user. So that worked beautifully. And you can see our password is also encrypted. So our registration functionality is complete. Next, we will do the login and log out.